You guys got to tell that was just one baby, 2 more came after that. Women got it rough too. Amen. But it's no joke being a man. Okay? So, you might read in your magazines written by women, for women, telling you 9 things a man needs, and it's funny, and all the stuff that you read that your girlfriends tell you we need, and that a women's magazine tells you we need. It's a women's article, it's a woman's story. She's telling you about us, and most of the time she doesn't even know what she's talking about. You just wasted that money on that magazine, however much it costs. You should just throw that in the off. Amen? So, it's hard to be a man because we're filled with this thing, it's called testosterone. It is both a blessing and a curse. It makes us highly competitive. It makes us want to win. It makes us feel driven. It makes us aggressive. And anytime we don't feel like we're winning, it is difficult for any man to continue to do what he doesn't do well. So for all the naggers that are trying to change him by telling him what he doesn't do well, the more you tell him what he doesn't do well, the less he feels that he wants to come home.
Whoa.
Because men are not drawn to criticism. We are created in the likeness of God. We are drawn to praise. We perform the best when you brag about what we do. When you brag about what we do, we will do it better.
Amen.
When we come home from grocery shopping and you see us walking through the door with 4 bags of groceries, and you say, man, look at my man, looking all strong. We will say, you know what, baby, throw that 5th bag on there. I got this. This ain't no thing. This ain't no thing. I'll carry this on my pinky. You know? When you brag about what we do, we will do it better.
Amen.
You following me? So we love praise. We are created in the likeness of God. When you give God praise, He is glorified. He swells up when you praise Him. When you praise men, we become better. We become bigger, stronger, more adept. The truth of the matter is, there is not a man in here that there are some things that he shies away from because he is afraid that he doesn't do them well. But has society put us in a dilemma? Because they keep changing the game. New mandates come out every 2 to 3 years. They come out with new mandates as to what a good man is. It used to be that if you were a good provider, you were a good man. If you took care of the family, you paid the bills, you brought the money home, you were a good man. It doesn't matter that Papa didn't talk. Papa would go, come home from work, sit over in his chair, and every once in a while he would let out a grunt. It didn't matter because he was a good man. And you might get a I love you every 10 years in a critical situation, maybe like a deathbed confession where they're trying to get out an I love you, and you can't tell if it's an I love you or if he's just passing gas, you know? Because it doesn't matter because he was a good man. And if you said anything to mom about him, she would slap you because there was a time when women didn't let children talk about their fathers. But today, we can't just be a provider. We gotta be in touch with our feelings, listen to our inner voice. We gotta be touchable. We've got to be willing to express our emotions. So now, you're not just a provider. You don't just bring home the bacon. You gotta be able to cry. But if you cry too much, you're soft and you're wimpy. And if you don't cry at all, you're not a man. So now, most men are confused, and they're thinking, how can I be a good man to a woman that enjoys being a good man? So quiet in here, huh? Remember, you gave me permission. It's gonna be a little rough in here today, but it's all right. See, I spent all my life being groomed to open up doors for you, to make sure you're okay, to call on you, to check on you. And when you pride on doing for yourself what I used to do, have you not worked me out of a job? You guys ready? This is just the introduction, y'all. Wait till we get down. This is just the appetizer. This is like some spinach artichoke dip right here. So, has society set us up to fail because it's consistently changing the role that we are to play, but yet we're commanded to be on the set? Why do you need us? When was the last time that you told him you needed him? What do I bring to the table? What is it about me that makes your life better? Because if all you're good at is communicating where I fall short, don't expect me to excel, because I do not flourish in criticism. I flourish in praise. I flourish in the same thing that you give your sons. Because believe it or not, every father in here is somebody's little boy.
Amen.
All right, let's get into this word right here. Not many of you like the appetizer, let's see if you like the entree. So we are just past Mother's Day and Father's Day. And do you know how much more money is spent on Mother's Day than Father's Day? It's not even close. Do you know how much more money Hallmark makes on Mother's Day cards and Father's Day cards? It's not even close. So, it's not a big payoff to be a good father, a good man. Not a lot of recognition that goes on with it. We are the ones that sign the kids up for the sports, and we take them to all the practices, and we take them in the backyard, and we do the extra practices, and we make all the games, all the scrimmages, and then when they finally make it, and they're in front of a crowd, they say,
I think my mom.
"Hi, Mom." So it's hard. It's hard to be a good man, a steady man. So there's not a lot of big payoff for it. And the truth of the matter is, more and more men of all colors are quitting, and they're walking away. And our younger generation is mad, angry, upset, because their fathers left. And not even noticing that they're on their second go-around. It is easier to criticize somebody for leaving than it is for you to stay. And sometimes we're blaming our parents for the things that are in us too. I never knew my father. Well, you left your wife and kids. Your kids haven't seen you in 6 months to a year. So what is different from what you're doing than what your father did? With me? I just thought I would ask because I'm not sure what the difference is between what you did and your fathers did. And now here's another broken-hearted little boy who's been left to try and fill a hole, trying to find a role model, a mentor, anywhere he can find, from a gang leader to a drug dealer, all because your hand left him. And daughters so fascinated by men that they never even knew that they're willing to be with anybody just to know what it's like to be with a man. Or women who marry men but have never lived with a man because she didn't have a father. So she doesn't know the signals or the nature and the characteristics of a man. And it's hard to be a good man to a woman that never had a father, because now you have to live up to what she imagined. And just because you imagined it doesn't make it right, doesn't make it doable, achievable. I wish you would not have imagined Superman, because I wish you would have imagined a flawed man, a man that gets tired, a man that gets weary, a man that worries, but he's still there and he's pushing and he's fighting and he's swinging, trying to go forward. Because I wish you would have imagined Clark Kent, because even though I have my Superman moments, I still have this kryptonite that I have to deal with. So I'll touch two people and say men fall short. So let's talk this morning about a man that fell short. He's in Genesis 35. His name is Jacob. And he comes from a good family, a very strong family. He comes from a family of do-right people. He's a do-wrong guy in a do-right family. Have you ever been that guy? The wrong guy in the right family? Not living up to the family brand, the family model, the family ideals and concepts. Are you the stone that the builders rejected? Are you the misfit that didn't fit in with the rest of the people? And always stood out. This is the kind of guy Jacob was. He was just a different sort of guy. He came from a long line of faith men. Abraham was his grandfather. Isaac was his father. And here comes Jacob. And Jacob was slick. He was greasy. He was like greasier than a bucket of KFC. You know, there are some brothers in here right now that you clean up real good for church, but you still just a little greasy. As greasy as like some McDonald's fries, you know. And yet God does call greasy people. It's hard to explain, it's crazy, it may not make a lot of sense, but God does call greasy, broken people.
Amen.
Jacob was a trickster. He was a con man. So Jacob didn't fit the rest of the family. He didn't have the faith of his grandfather Abraham, the tenacity of his father Isaac. He was a misfit, a trickster, a scam. And yet, God reached out and said, I want you.
Yes.
So what do you do when a holy God snatches up a greasy man and says, you're in my plan and I have a purpose for your life? I know you've been strung out on drugs. I know about your sexual lifestyle. I know that you've been an alcoholic, a wife abuser, but I've got a plan for your destiny. That's the guy I'm talking about. His name is Jacob. And you look at this person sitting next to you and ask, what's your name? Let's do a little oil check here. What's your name? Don't worry about my name. You can just call me brother. You know? So, he knew what life had made him. He knew what situations had done in his life. And he has an encounter with God on Peniel. And God gets him and says, look, you think you're greasy, you think you're slick, you think you're a trickster. He said, but you're a prince. And you don't even know it. And he hops down off the mountain after having encountered God, a life-changing encounter. And he enters into this twilight zone. This twilight zone of living between Jacob and Israel.
Yeah.
See, sometimes, let me back up a second. See, every man has a Jacob and an Israel. And sometimes Jacob and Israel, they'll get in a fight. You know, Jacob wants to quit and Israel wants to stay. Israel wants to stay home and Jacob wants to go out to the club. Israel wants to read the Bible and Jacob wants to watch porn. You know, there are battles going on in between. And yet God is the God of Israel, but he's also the God of Jacob.
Amen.
Amen. So he comes down from this mountain with both men working inside of him, and he runs into his brother Esau. And he reconciles with his brother Esau, because one of the signs of being truly converted is you resolve conflicts with your brother. Jesus told Peter, when thou art converted, strengthen your brethren. So the moment he has this conversion experience, he comes down off the mountain and he reconciles himself with his brother. And he's got just one more dilemma left. He's got this journey. Just after being in Bethel and having had this encounter with God, Bethel means house of God. He's been to church and he's had this encounter, an encounter so strong that he puts up rocks and he anoints them with oil and he says, this is the house of God, this is the gateway to heaven, and he has his hand on the spot where the glory of the Lord is, and he still has a problem. He's got a wife, and it's a wife that he loves. It's his wife named Rachel, and she's pregnant. And he's trying to get her to Ephrata. And you have to understand that Rachel is the love of his life. You know, often in our society, we hear about how much women love men, and we don't talk much about how much men love women. This was the love of his life. It was like a girly kind of love, like a romance novel type of a love. It was a love at first sight. That when he saw her, he said, that's my woman.
Yeah.
And he said, whatever I got to do to get her, I'll do it. And he went to work. And he worked for 7 years to get her, and he got her sister Leah.
Yes.
Because his uncle Laban, he was a little greasy guy himself, pulled a quick one on him. And in order to get Rachel, he's got to work another 7 years.
Yep.
So he goes back to work, and he finally gets Rachel. And Rachel was amazing. But Rachel, as beautiful as she was, she also had a problem. She was fine as wine, but she couldn't have children.
Yeah.
So Rachel has to pray for God to open up her womb. And God did just that. God opened up her womb, and everything that came out of it, Jacob loved it. He loved it like it was her. When Jacob looked up at Rachel when she gave birth to Joseph, he loved Joseph. He made Joseph the coat of many colors. It was awesome. So God would open up her womb again. And she's pregnant again. Only this time, the pregnancy is a little rough. And Jacob is on a journey. And he's not in a jet or a bus. He's not in an Uber. He's on a wagon. And he's trying his best to get Rachel to Ephrata. Ephrata is a journey. It's a struggle. It's a struggle to lead a family with problems over rough road, terrain, obstacles, bad wheels. He's trying to get her there. Every good man in this room is trying to get who you love there.
Amen.
You're trying to get them there over tough road, potholes, snakes, treachery, sometimes with subpar equipment sometimes, a poor education sometimes, little opportunity sometimes. Sometimes you didn't have a father yourself and you're still trying to get them over the road. And in order to get his family over the road, he has to sit with the horses. But his wife Rachel, the one that he loves, is in the wagon. So when you look at this picture of the wagon, you notice if you're sitting with the horses, then you're not in the wagon. You see, they are in the same vehicle, but they have two different positions.
Mm-hmm.
They are on the same journey from two different perspectives. See, and Rachel, his wife, the one that he loves, is in the wagon. and he has a dilemma. In order to have progress, I have to sit here with the horses. And I'm sitting here with the horses working on progress. But behind me, I hear pain. I hear wailing. The wailing of the love of my life. And the dilemma for the man up front is that if I manage to have progress, I do it by not being present. And if I am present with you, then I have to give up the horses and the progress. The dilemma that he now faces is, do I stay with the horses, though I hear the love of my life crying in the wagon? Or is this a be there moment where I'm back in the wagon? But Rachel, if I'm back in the wagon, then we're not moving forward. And if we're not moving forward, then I'm not in the wagon. And you tell me I'm not there. The problem with being a father is that you cannot drive the horses and hang out in the wagon. If I hang out in the wagon, the horses stop. And if I hang out with the horses, your respect for me stops. Because you say, I'm not there for you, even when you need me. So it's hard to be a man, because we're there and we're driving these horses, and we're saying, I gotta get us there. I gotta get us there by 40. I gotta get us there by 45. I'm getting a little older now. I gotta get us there by 50. I've got to get us to Ephrata because I got an emergency in the wagon. And if I don't get us there by a certain time, we're gonna fall short. Every man struggles with this. Do I drive the wagons? Do I stay with the horses? So Jacob, he's struggling with this. And Rachel's having a hard time. And Jacob wasn't there in the wagon. It implies that he wasn't there in the wagon because when she gives birth, she names the baby a name that Jacob has to rename.
Yeah.
The reason that I chose this text was for one little phrase. They were yet a little ways from Ephrata. They were almost there. Almost got the house. They almost got the family together. They almost got out of debt. There are so many men in here who are almost there. The problem is they were yet a little ways from Ephrata when Rachel lurched in the final lurch of labor and she birthed her baby just short of Ephrata. And he was trying to get her to Ephrata, sometimes called Bethlehem, which is the house of bread. And if he could just get her to Ephrata, it would be okay, because then she would understand why I was with the horses. When we get the house paid off, she'll understand. When we get the taxes paid off, she'll understand. If I can just get her there, she'll understand. I'll keep quiet this morning. So, most men, they have a plan. They have a plan of, if I work overtime, if I save and work and save and go to church and drop the kids off like you need and run over to this job and work more overtime, then come back. We got this 3-year plan that you know, we're going to get it done, we're going to get it there, the car's going to be paid off in a year and a half, but they were yet a little ways away. Guilty with the struggle that every man here faces. Do I move them forward? Is that the best use of me? Or do I mingle amongst them? Because every time I start to mingle with the family, I stop the movement. And every time I start the movement, I'm not there for the mingling. A moment of realness. By raising of your hand, how many men understand what I'm talking about here this morning? I am not Vogue magazine or Cosmopolitan, but if you want to know what your man is thinking about when you ask him and he tells you nothing, this is what he's thinking about.
Amen.
Amen.
I bet you did.
Thinking, how do I drive the horses and be in the wagon? How can I support what you're trying to do and fund what you're trying to do? How can I show up at work and work the overtime it takes to make it possible for you and the kids to do it and be there? So some men are very present, not so much money. He hangs around all the time, he's Johnny on the spot, but maybe he's got like $5 in his pocket. And when you get sick of him, you say, you're not a man. And you don't bring nothing into this house. And then the other man, everything's provided for, but he's never home. And both men are not happy. They're just torn between the wagon and the horses. Between the wagon and the horses, so it's like, and you go run back. Hi, how you guys doing? What? Summer's almost over, kids need school clothes? Running back and forth, torn between the wagon and the horses. What is the best use of me? So while all that is going on and Jacob's running back and forth, something happened in the wagon. Rachel lurched and birthed the baby, and she died. Before she died, she named him. And Jacob says, we were almost there. We were almost there, baby. We almost made it. I almost got you there. But we were yet a little ways away. So I think it's worse to be so close than it is to be far away. To have it in sight, to almost be there. To be 10 miles from the shore than to be 30 miles from the shore. And to give out and collapse and drown in shallow water. They were so close. And she died, and they were almost to everything. And Jacob fell short. So he goes back up into the wagon, and the midwife hands him his baby, and the woman that he really, really loves, and men seldomly really love. The reason that we protect our hearts is that when you break my heart, you have broken me.
Yeah.
She was the love of his life, and she died. And they hand him the baby, and they say that she named her son Benoni, son of my sorrow.
Yeah.
And Jacob said, no, his name shall not be Benoni, but he shall be called Benjamin,
Yeah,
son of my strength.
Yes. Amen.
Because it was my strength that kept me going.
Amen.
It was my strength that kept me writing.
Amen.
And I come to learn that his son that had two names was just like his father. Just like every man has a Jacob and an Israel, there's a Benoni and a Benjamin. The sorrow and the strength. Some of us wouldn't be nearly as strong as we are today if we didn't go through a little bit of sorrow in our life. In fact, I think it's the sorrow that we went through that made us so strong. There's a Benoni and a Benjamin, and the Benoni is behind every Benjamin and every man, and they're saying just, you gotta get up.
Yeah.
You gotta get up because you don't got a choice. And sometimes being a man means you ain't got no choice.
Yeah.
So the son, just like the father, with two names.
Mm.
So he's holding his baby, and the love of his life is past. And so he grabbed the shovel, and right there, where in the very spot where he fell short, he buried Rachel. In the very spot where he fell short, he was like, I almost got this today. I was riding as hard as I could. I rode all night. I did the best I had with what I was given. I gave it everything I got. And I know that people look at me and they think, what in the world was that guy doing? Because whenever you fall short, they never see what you did right. They only see what you did wrong. And he buried Rachel right there. Right there. Just short of effort. There's a stone to this day that marks her burial ground.
Mm-hmm.
So he dug a hole, he covered it up. And I want to ask every man in here, what have you buried in the place that you fell short? Because just like Jacob, in the place that he fell short, he buried his Rachel. Every man, when they fall short, they bury something. Not always a Rachel. Sometimes it's your fight. Sometimes it's your joy. Sometimes it's your peace, it's your smile. And then you get back up on the wagon and nobody knows, not even the horses, that a whole man got off, but only half a man got back on. You hear me this morning?
Amen.
And then he rides on, and it's kind of a sad story that how could it end like that he buried the love of his life right there. And to all the men here this morning, I want to tell you that when you bury something in the place that you fall short, you miss out on a miracle. Because Jesus, in the story of Lazarus, he went to Martha and Mary and he said, take me to the place where you buried him. Take me to the place where you fell short. Take me to the place where you gave up. Because I want to be the Jesus that takes you the rest of the way, that resurrects what you buried in the spot that you've given up. Amen? I'm going to get ready to close up. I want to go ahead and open up the altar. So the story kind of ends like that, and I think, my mind starts wondering, like, how could we let Jacob get so close and fall short? And then when we jump thousands of years ahead on the road to Ephrathah, which is now called Bethlehem, there's another couple, Joseph and Mary. And Mary's pregnant. And Joseph is trying to get Mary to Bethlehem because she's going to go into labor. And the spot where Joseph buried Rachel, where Jacob buried Rachel, Joseph kept riding. And where Jacob fell short, Joseph made it with Mary. You know what that means, right? Jesus. Jesus. In the spot where we fall short, Jesus will take us the rest of the way.
Amen.
He'll make up the difference. Amen? He wants to be the one that takes you the rest of the way. Everything that all the work that you're putting in, all the riding of the horses, all the running back and forth, Jesus wants to make it up for you. He wants to make it up to you. He wants to be the one that takes over where you fall short. But he can be Jesus in church all day long. But until you take him to the spot where you buried what you lost, surviving where you fell short, you need to make him the Lord over that spot so you can get your miracle and he will resurrect it and he will make you whole. Amen? Thank you, Jesus. The altars are open. To all my brothers, to all my sisters, Jesus.
You